Here we go with the craziness and the nervousness and everything. Hey you guys, so I'm back today with another video and I'm hoping that everyone's doing well. If this is the first time you've been through my channel, I just want to say welcome to my channel. Okay, so today I'm back with my prison story part 2. Again, a disclaimer, my intentions with telling my stories are not to offend anybody or to anything, right? The point of my stories and the reason why I do these stories is because I want to be able to get across to somebody that might need to hear this. And it's always a blessing to tell your story because you don't know who's out there listening, and you don't know if this may somehow, some way change their lives around. So I put it out there in hopes that whoever it is watching, that you can know that you're not alone and that there's definitely life after prison. This channel started off as life after deportation, and I wanted to tell my testimony about that. But with these stories that I'm bringing you guys, I also want to let you know you can rebuild your life, and it doesn't matter if you're in the States or in Mexico or any other country. And if there's any way that we can connect through our stories, well then, that's a blessing in itself. But I just want to put a little hope out there. So in my first story, I basically just shared how I'd been incarcerated for the first time, and how it all kind of had just happened so fast, and I got deported. And I left out the part where I had been in INS and just other things, like the whole process of getting deported. I got deported for the first time in July of 2005. So I did about a year, I think, almost a year the first time around. So the first few months that I was here, I really gave it a try. But during that time here, I met this guy, right? And, he'd been deported as well. And I shared this in my, on my first video of getting deported and starting over in Mexico and stuff. And this guy, we dated for some time, and I happened to get pregnant by this guy. And he was like, do you want to go back? And we considered it now because, like I said, I hadn't before. I was just going to give it a try, like staying here and stuff. And eventually I was like, you know what, maybe they're right, because my mom was insisting, like, Annie, you need to come back. You can't have that baby in Mexico. You have to come back. And I was like, okay, well then I was kind of just like, okay, they're right. Like I should leave. And he actually crossed me back. He had actually been deported for that same reason, for like crossing people. So it was nothing to him. It was like, I'm going to get you and that baby across. Back then it was easy to cross. Now it's like hard to cross. I would never cross again, ever, ever. But yeah, back then it was a lot easier. So we ended up, of course, trying to get to Houston because he's from Conroe, Texas. So he was really close to Houston, and we're just gonna part ways, honestly. Like, he was gonna go back to like his people, and I was gonna go back to my house, and I was just gonna try to do things right. Even though I was still a little like worried, you know what I mean? Like what's it gonna be like living in the States without papers? Because I've never lived in the States without papers, and it was just a big mess. We're driving one of my cousin's trucks, and I was driving. At first, he was gonna drive it, and we're like halfway there, and I was like, you know what? I was like, maybe I should drive. And it was a dumb decision. Of course, it was a dumb decision, right? Because I mean, either way, if we're gonna get caught, we're gonna get caught. Honestly, it didn't matter who was driving. Like right off, they were like, man, sounds like funny with y'all or something. We're gonna check y'all. We're gonna check to see where y'all headed to. They just looked at him because of all the tattoos and stuff. They were like, we're gonna run his prints. And when they said that, I was like, man, like I said, the reason why I didn't want to go back is because they wanted to give me like 20 years. They were like, man, if you cross back, you're gonna get a lot of time. Because I had gotten like a lifetime deportation. So I was like, nah, man, I'm not gonna go back. I'm not gonna go back. And because of that second-degree felony that I had the first time, right? And as soon as they said that, I was like, man, this is not gonna be good, right? And it wasn't. He just got deported, and he just been in a lot of trouble before. He had like this big record and stuff, and I was just like, damn, like they were just like, okay, well, now we're gonna run your prints. And at first they were like, you're crossing him. When they ran his prints, they were like, oh, so, you're not supposed to be here. And they turned and looked at me and they were like, oh, you're crossing him. You're his coyote. And I was like, no, I'm not his coyote. I was like, I'm pregnant by this dude. And then they were like, well, this dude happens to be like a coyote himself. Like, what are y'all doing? And I was like, I was just like, honestly, we're just trying to get back. They already knew they had already ran our prints or whatever. So we're kind of just like, well. And then homeboy was like, the border patrol was like, so how do I know you're not going to pick up a few more people down the street? I was like, man, because I'm not crossing him for money. We're trying to cross back. And he was like, man, no. He's like, he was like really insisting that I was this coyote, right? That I was trying to cross people. And because I had this truck that I was supposed to pick up all these people. And he even said, if I go a few miles down the road and I see people hiding behind the bushes, I'm gonna put them on you. I'm gonna say that they were waiting for you. And he was just trying really hard for me to say, like, yeah, I'm crossing people. I was like, look, you can go do whatever the heck you want. I'm not doing that. I was like, me and this dude are dating. I was like, I'm pregnant. I was like, I'm trying to get home. And they were like, so you're not crossing anybody? And I was like, no, I'm not crossing anybody. So by this time, it was just like, we're just going back and forth. And, they were like, okay, well, you had just got deported too. So I'm going to charge you for smuggling of an alien, right? Because no lo sacabas de ahí. O sea, he was like very insistent and like, this is what you're doing. And I'm going to charge you for reentry. And then when he said that, as soon as he said that, I was like, man, I'm going to call my mom and she's going to trip. I was like, she's going to freaking flip out. And I called her. And like the first thing I thought was, man, I'm not going to get to raise this baby. I'm not gonna get to raise this baby because, man, in Fed time, you do your whole Fed time. Like, you do your whole Fed time, and I already knew that. I called my mom, and when I told her, it was a sound of just grief. You know what I mean? She was like, oh my God, like, no, like this, like deep sorrow, This happened on December 25th of 2005. So right on Christmas. And I remember after that, I locked myself in the restroom, and I said this in my first video. If you've watched it before, you know what I'm talking about. Like, I literally locked myself in the restroom, and I just cried. I just let it all out. I cried like hard, like cried really hard. And I was like, screw it. I mean, it is what it is. There's nothing I can do about it. I didn't even think like, man, like, who's going to keep my baby? Is my mom going to keep my baby? Like, what's going to happen? Like, I knew I wasn't going to get to raise my baby, but I didn't allow myself to think beyond that point. I was just trying to really, at the same time, trying to figure out what was going to happen, right? So while I'm crying and just getting it out, because after that, I did not cry. I didn't cry. I spent, and I'll get to that in a second, I spent a lot of my time in solitary confinement when I was pregnant. And I don't remember crying in there at all. I would just get, towards the end of my pregnancy, I would get really bad anxiety. And that's the first time that I'd ever felt anxiety in my life, was when I was in the SHU. While I was crying this out, this guy, right, he was really like, he was like, man, he was really convincing to the laws, he was really convincing to the laws, that he was like, man, you need to believe me when I tell you this, like, this girl's not crossing me. Like, if anything, like, I crossed her. Like, we're here because I crossed her. Like, you need to drop them charges. And he was really like, they put me in my cell, and he still stayed there for like an hour or two, like going back and forth with these border patrols. This guy, I don't keep in touch with him at all. I haven't allowed my son to, because he's just continually like in trouble. He never got he never like got his life right. And because I wanted so hard to change my life around after that, this whole situation, I didn't allow myself to I didn't allow my son to be around him. Like, I gave him enough chances to get right, and he just didn't. And I've been so desperate to get out of that lifestyle. It's just like, he's gonna be a bad influence. Like, I just decided to go about it that way. And some people are gonna agree, some people are gonna disagree, but this is how it's worked out best for us. But I can say, and he's not in our lives anymore, but I can say that he was able to drop them charges, so I never got charged for that. It's in my FOIA. It is in my FOIA documents. And one of my FOIAs, I don't know, because there's like a bunch of FOIAs, and one of the FOIAs that we have does say that they tried to charge me for a smuggling of an alien, but they weren't able to do that. And it was because of this guy. And I just want to say thank you for that. Everything else was, things just happened the way they had to, and it was what it was. But I wish him well wherever he is now, you know, I really do. So after being at the checkpoint, they transferred us to Webb County. They read our charges, which, you know, thankfully was just re-entry for both of us. This guy, he was adopted by an American citizen, so he was already in the process of fixing his papers when he decided to like cross back. And he just crossed back because he wanted to bring me back, and because he just wanted to come back and visit, I guess. I don't know how exactly it worked for him, but he didn't even need to do that because he was on his way of being back anyways. They paid a lot of money for this guy to, like, he got all his charges knocked. I think he had like even manslaughter cases and everything, and this guy was able to get back. And here some of us are with like a, you know, petty ass case, and these people that have had like really bad cases have, and he's already back. And once he got back, ended up going to prison and out again. Like, he didn't do anything with it. He didn't do anything with it. So it's just unfortunate that some people get that chance and then they don't care and they just go back to the same thing. And some of us are on this side trying our best to, you know, like change our lives around, and it doesn't happen. But because of this situation, thank God, when I got my charges read, and even in the FOIAs now, like, if they wanted to charge me ever or really say that I was smuggling, you know, an alien, they can't do that. So when they read my charges, they were like, you have a reentry charge and you're going to be held in Encinal, Texas. Entonces me llevaron a Encinal. Estuve en Encinal como yo creo que un mes a lo mucho. Thank God, because this guy and I got transferred to the same holding facility. I hated Encinal, for real. Like, I hated Encinal. I was there for a month, and it was the worst thing ever. Like, I prayed every single day that I was there, every single day of that 1 month that I was there, to please be moved. It was the second time around, you guys, when I was incarcerated, it was really different, because by this time, I think I was already like feeling the aftermath of having been deported the first time, and then getting here and having to start over, and then getting incarcerated again. And because I knew in my mind that I was going to do a lot of time, I wasn't as careful to not get in trouble like the first time. This time, I didn't care. Even when I was pregnant, and it's shameful to say this, and again, you know, a lot of people are gonna, you know, be like, damn, man, it was really like, when I was in Encinal, there was a lot of that going on. There was this guy was there, and he used to bother me a lot, like a lot. Because by this time, after all that happened with that other guy, by this time I had zero tolerance left for any type of person. I had none left. I was like, man, that one time was the only time that I'll ever deal with any foolishness. Man, after that, I was done. And then in one of them times, when you first go in, they put you in general population, right? And then they started, you know, being fights. They moved me tanks because of that. They were like, well, we're going to throw you in another tank. But it happened to be that this other girl that we had gotten into it when we first got processed in. But she went her way and I went my way. And I ended up getting, when I had like this argument in this first pod, and they moved me to another one, she was there. But by this time, she had all the Salvadorian girls, all the immigrant girls. Like, she turned the whole tank against me, man. I had to really literally sleep with like one eye open that whole time I was there, because later on we ended up being friends. She passed away now. But at the time we just did not get along. We did not get along. And one time she got the whole tank against me. And I was just sitting there, man. I didn't even care. I did not even care. I was just. But sometimes there's been, there's times when you run tanks, and then there's times when the whole tank's against you. And I lived both of them this time in this prison story. So after that, I was there for just a little bit, and there was a lot of fights, and I ended up getting just moved to like solitary confinement, and they were just like, man, just throw our ass in there. And I stayed there for a little bit, and then when I finally heard through the little, because they have a speaker, right? And they were like, Castillo, you're pulling chain. And as soon as I heard that, man, I was like, God answered my prayers. I was so happy. I was like, thank goodness. And I was like, when I got out of there, when they throw you in a van, because it's different. And it's different with the feds. I remember like they used to move us around a lot in vans, and not like the old prison bus. Remember how I told y'all TDC is very Green Mile and really just old and everything? Well, the feds is different because there's a lot more money in the feds, and everything's just better and fancier, and it's still prison, but it's better. Like everything is better, and I'll get to that when I get to my prison, like the prison part. But so I ended up getting moved to Falfurrias, Texas, and that's where I did most of my time. I did almost a year in Falfurrias before I got sentenced. That's where I did my whole pregnancy. That's where I had my son, not in the prison, but I was in that county jail while I gave birth to my son. I have some really good and bad memories in Falfurrias. The warden was really nice to me. He really was. And some of the guards were cool as hell too. Some of them were assholes, but you know how it is. It's just like that. But I was there for some time. I had been there for so long. They kind of just gave me preference, a lot of preference in Falfurrias. For real, they were good to me there. They really were. Falfurrias at the time held all kinds of inmates. There was like immigrants and like regular cases all mixed in there. The most I remember about Falfurrias is escuchando Paulino Bernal. Todo eso, había mucha gente de FAR, de Bronzeville, McAllen, de todo el valle, había bastante raza ahí, de Laredo, Texas. En Falfurrias casi no había gente, por ejemplo, como yo de Houston o de San Antonio o de otros lugares, casi no. Había gente de Corpus también. There was just people from everywhere, but it was mostly like the locals, like the people from around that area. Some of the people that I was in Falfurrias with, I know are here in the city. Like sometimes I'll see them and, we'll say hi or whatever. And some other people I just completely lost, in contact with, but there's still people that I sometimes run into and we say hi. Some people I added on Facebook. I actually kept more friends from my Fed time than my TDC time. I would say TDC, I had only kept like one friend at the most, but with this time around, I actually have lifetime friends that actually they got out and they did great things. So one of them actually helped me name my son, because I was sitting there and I was like, man, what should I name my kid? And she was like, man, you should just name him this or that. We had good times, bad times. We used to sing in there. We used to have like movie nights. Sometimes you used to have to keep people from fighting, like, because like I said, when you were there for so long, they used to be like, Castillo, just take care of that tank, because sometimes like immigrants, they fight among each other, because one of them wants to watch the novela and then the other one wants to watch something else. They have to like a ver, tranquilícense todas, cálmense todas, a ver, we all have to. But it wasn't like a ugly fight. It was just like sometimes, yeah, like sometimes there would be like this like tank against tank type of fight thing, right? But for the most part, your own tank was like a family. And there was a lot of respect. Like if you'd been there for a long time and you had that bunk in the corner, people kind of just respected what you had to say. And there was a lot of that, but we all got along in the sense that, y'all, we're gonna have to, because I man, when I was in prison, I used to watch a lot of football. Like, that was my thing. I had to watch, like, for real. And they were like, well, we want to watch the novelas. And I used to, and you know, I could have easily started with the ones I wanted to watch the game. But I was like, no, because, I mean, es raza. Tienes que hacer algo por la racita, ¿verdad? Porque, pues, había de todo ahí. So it'll be like, okay, well, you know, y'all gonna watch the novela for this long, and then we're gonna watch the game for this long. And we used to kind of just, you know, do that. We used to kind of work it out. But also when I was pregnant, they used to help me a lot. Even when I gave birth, after I gave birth, they helped me out a lot. Even because it was my first pregnancy. You know, the ladies that, you know, there was some old school Mexican ladies up in there. And so they used to kind of just guide me through it. And I remember that, like, the night before having my baby, they were like, I was like, hey, I was like, you know, this happened. And they were like, oh, girl, you're about to have your baby tomorrow. And I was like, you think? They were like, yeah, and sure enough, I had my son the next day. But there was just a lot of good and bad experiences. I don't want to get too much into detail because aquí me la llevo, pero there were some times that, there were a few times when I got in fights and I had to be thrown to the shoe. Other times I was just like, man, I used to tell the guards, you know what, I was too tired. You know, when you know what it's like to be pregnant, and it was my first baby, and there was a lot going on with my body that I just didn't understand, and I wanted solitude. Like, I didn't want any noise. I wanted to just be in my bunk, and I didn't care if I didn't watch TV, because you want to be in the tanks because there's TV, right? And because you get to play cards all day, and because you get to talk to people. But sometimes you want to just be like by yourself. You want to read, you want to write. So sometimes I would just ask the guards, like, man, just throw me in the shoe, man. Throw me in the shoe for like a month or two and then bring me, like, back. But the thing about it was that whenever I would get brought out again, I would go to a different tank that I was in. And then if somebody else was running that tank, you would just have to kind of, you know what I'm saying, not bump heads with the people there. So it was just a lot of, you know, going on. Like, people were in and out, and different, you know, tanks had different rules, and you just had to otra vez acostumbrarte a lo que estaba pasando ahí. And then sometimes they would just straight up tell you, man, I don't want you in my tank. I'd be like, well, send me to another tank then. Sometimes it was like that. Sometimes it's not even personal. They just, I mean, it can be personal, but sometimes you just got to keep it real. Like, so all this was going on, and yeah, when I was in the shoe, I used to read my Bible a lot when I was in the shoe, man. I think I probably read most of my Bible when I was in the shoe. I used to just listen to the radio all day long. That's what I'm saying. I used to listen. I siempre escuchaba en las estaciones del creo que estaba en el AM, ¿verdad? Paulino Bernal y todos esos. I used to hear all the Tejano music. I used to hear just all that. And I was happy because I'm like straight up Tejano in my heart for the rest of my life. Like, straight up Tejano, man. I was like, man, it just kept me close to home. And I was just, most of my time in Falfurrias was a blessing, like I said, because I used to even take walks with the warden sometimes. Whenever they used to take me out to get checkups at the hospital, because when you're pregnant in prison, they take you out every month. They're giving you prenatals. They're really just whatever it is that you need. They're gonna make sure that you're set. It's different for everybody, but for the most part in that facility, they were good about taking care of the pregnant girls, because there was a lot of pregnant women in there. There was a lot. There was at least, like, at one point there was like 5 of us. And in the very first facility that I was in Encinal, just así nada más éramos como 3 o 4, así a la vista. Y ya cuando llegué a Falfurrias habían otras cuantas embarazadas. There was a lot of us. And I was, like, the reentries, not all of us were doing a lot of time. But there was this one girl that she wasn't there for a reentry. She was in there for, like, drugs or something, or, like, money laundering. And she'd already been sentenced. She was just waiting to be transferred to, like, her definite, stay. So she'd gotten 20 years. So she really wasn't going to raise her baby. She was going to have a girl. And out of all of us that were there pregnant, I had my son first. And one of them gave him up to the state. One of them, this girl that she did 20 years, I think she had older kids, so her older, kids were gonna take care of her baby girl. Actually, I happened to speak to the warden, and I was like, hey, because I knew that there was a lot of these girls were going through things, and some of them, were struggling to get, to leave their babies. I was like, man, I just want to be ready, and I want to have something ready. So when my mom or my dad come and pick up my son at the hospital, they won't have a problem getting him, right? So I want to sign over my, temporary custody, so the state won't get involved. And this warden happened to get a notary, and they came to the prison, and both my mom and my dad came to the prison, and we, I signed them over my rights, right, to my son. I was ready before I had my son. Every single month that I would go up there, it was crazy because they take you in the van to the hospital, and I used to get my checkups in a hospital in Kingsville, Texas, which was where I gave birth to my son. And it's called Christus Spawn in Kingsville, Texas. And I used to, get out of the van in my orange uniform with my cuffs, and I used to sit in the doctor's office with the rest of the pregnant women cuffed like this. I mean, like holding a magazine like this, and I was just like going through the magazine. I used to tell the guard, because like I said, I had been there for so long. Everybody was just in and out. Like, they would hurry up and get sentenced and then just leave. And I was the only one taking forever. So I'd made friends with these guards. And they were like, please let me take some of these magazines back. I was like, I want to at least get like the pregnancy feel, that, some type of normalcy or something. And they were like, sure, just take it. So I used to just sit there, and we used to kind of like laugh it off that people used to look at me funny. Like, oh my goodness, this girl. So, when it was time for me to give birth, the guards, like I said, some of them weren't all nice. When it was time for them to take me, I didn't get like good guards. They were kind of just being assholes, and it was like the night shift, and they didn't really believe that I was like having contractions, so I had to wait till the next day, and then they finally moved me like from the infirmary to, to the hospital. And I don't know if it was just, like I said, bad luck or what, but the guard that night actually cuffed me. Like, cuffed my stomach. I was having contractions, you guys. I was literally having contractions, and she still cuffed me, and she cuffed my whole belly, like to my hands like this. And it was just, I think that was so inhumane. I think that, how could you possibly flee if you're having contractions like this? Like, and the ride was kind of long from Falfurrias to Kingsville. It was a little drive, so it wasn't just like around the corner or something. It was like, it took us a little while to get there, and this whole time I'm just having contractions, and I'm just all kinds of cuffed. And when I got there, the nurses were like, you need to get all them cuffs off this girl, like right now. They were like right now. They were so upset that I was contracting this bad, and they were just like still, cuffing up my belly and everything. I ended up dilating to 6 centimeters, and I just didn't get past that. And they finally induced me, and I ended up having a C-section. It was so bad because it didn't really work. It was just like only half of my body was, numbing out, and the other one wasn't. And they had to just put me to sleep completely. So I didn't get to see my son till the next day at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I was with my son for like a day or two. I was in the hospital with my son for 2 days. Before, I had to call my mom to pick up my son. It was like this whole situation at the last minute, because the feds didn't really want to call my mom. And then the hospital, like, they were just kind of like, did they really know? Like, the hospital didn't want to let my mom know that I had already had my baby because I was in custody. And the marshals didn't want to call my mom because they felt like the hospital had a call. So it was like they were really not even communicating. And I was just getting upset because they were like, you're going to be released, but your baby's going to have to stay. And we're just going to call CPS. because, you know, we can't find a way to just, we're going to let CPS call your mom instead of, you know, the marshals don't want to do it. And then, you know, we think it's their responsibility, and then like vice versa. So this social worker happened to be there, right, when all this was going on. And I was like, I got really upset. I was like, I'm not leaving until somebody calls my mom. Like, I'm not leaving. Like, I had papers signed. This is not going to happen. And I was already like, ya estaba yo, like, en mi plan. When the social worker was like, give me your mom's, she's like, give me your mom's number. Like, she told me on the low. And I was like, are you going to call her? She's like, yes. She's like, I'm going to let her know that you already gave birth so she can come get your son. And I was like, oh my God, please do that. So by the time, like, these people decided what they were going to do, this lady had already called my mom. And I just want to say thank you for real. If, you know, there was a social worker back in July of 2006 and you were working at this hospital, I want to say thank you. And I also want to say thank you to all the nurses there. Hopefully, man, one day, if God allows it, hopefully either this will get to them or I will personally go up there and thank you, because you were so kind, for real, in such a hard time when nobody's holding your hand, when nobody's doing anything for you, when nobody cares how you feel. You know, when you're going through your first birth all alone and there's a guard at the door and you're cuffed to the bed, because they cuff your feet to the bed. While you're having contractions, your whole stay in the hospital, you're cuffed to the bed. And when you're going through the, you know, you have this guard, there's a guard or two guards always at the door. So when you haven't even had like real human, you know, contact or, you know, any of that, and you have these nurses and you have these social workers just being so kind to you in such a time, you know, of need, then yeah, it's such a blessing. And, you know, if you're a nurse, and there's a lot of nurses that watch me now because of my story with nursing, and if you do this and you work labor and delivery, or if you don't, if you just sometimes happen to get inmates, you make a difference in their lives. I promise you, I can assure you of this. And now being a nurse, I make sure of that every single time. Especially when I used to be in the labor and delivery department and there was girls in there, I got a lot of teen girls, single moms in there, and nobody's in there holding their hand. And a lot of the times the older nurses are just like, man, it's just another baby, like it's just another night shift. But I used to see them like I used to see myself that one day, you know, that one time, and I just hold their hand and I'm like, listen. And it was a blessing. It was a real blessing to have that. And I remember one of them, when I was already, when they were like, we're going to give you a C-section, she held my hand so hard, and she was, I don't even know what she was doing in the room. I don't know if she was a student. I don't know who she was. But when they were about to put me like out because nothing was working on me, she closed up on me, like she closed in on me. She grabbed my hand and she was like, Idalia, look at me. You're gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. I'm right here. And she started saying, because I was so scared. I was probably shivering. All this is going on. And when she gave me those words of assurance, I was like, everything's gonna be fine. And I passed out. And the next thing I know, I woke up to my son. But do that. You make a huge difference, I promise you. So I treasured, you know, those 2 days as much as I could. I tried to breastfeed my son the best I could, but unfortunately, you know, I wasn't able to, and there was just a lot of pain afterwards, you know, when I went back. And I remember there's a picture that this nurse took, and I'm gonna show it right here so you guys can see it. That's whenever my mom had already got the call and she was already on her way. The marshals ended up calling her anyways. They ended up working that out, and she was already on her way for my son, to pick up my son whenever this nurse was like, you want to take the picture? And I remember I didn't cry. You know what? I didn't even cry when I got him for the first time. And I feel so guilty for so many years because, like I said, I hardened up so much. I feel so guilty, but it was just like, I was happy to see him, but I didn't want to get too attached because I hadn't been sentenced yet. And I knew he was going to be okay. When I gave birth, I felt like this huge relief. When I was pregnant the whole time when I was in the county, I was like, man, all I want to do is just get my baby out of here. Like, I just want to get my baby out of here. I just want him to be better because I knew he was going to be okay with my mom. Like, I knew he was going to be, and my mom was just so anxiously waiting for my son. We didn't have a really good relationship before that. We weren't really close, but having like her picking, like her having my son, when I had to give him up, was just, it completely changed our relationship. Like we got so much closer, and she really just, because my mom's like, she parties a lot, even till this day. Like she parties way harder than me. She's always partied hard. So having a newborn for her, it was like this whole new experience. She's like, oh my goodness, she's like, somebody's finally gonna keep me home, because my mom, she parties like up to 4 times a week. She's a crazy party animal for real. Right, even right now, I'm telling y'all. So it just changed her life. I guess for good. For a long time. She got really attached. Like even now, it's hard for her to give up my son. Like it's always been like and I'll come around to sharing how it's been co-parenting and how it is for a lot of kids when you have to kind of just be and stuff. But it's brought a lot of strain too. And my relationship with my son just hasn't been like I've wanted to, because of the same reason, because I haven't been there all the time like I've wanted to. And he's also been really attached to her. She was the first thing that he ever knew, and it still feels like that. So there's a lot of consequences to this, and again, this is why I share this, because it's stuff that's gonna happen, and it's gonna happen. I remember when after I took that picture, I was just like, man, the nurse was like, okay, I'm gonna take your baby now. And when I seen her like roll away in the little, like in the little bassinet thing, and when she was like, she almost got to the door, I was like, wait, let me just hold his hand just one more time. And I remember I just went up there and I just touched his little head and I held his little hand, and it just gave me strength. I was like, ahora sí me voy a hacer mi tiempo como yo quiero. Ahora sí voy a hacer mi tiempo en paz. Si me quiero agarrar a chingazos, ahora sí me voy a agarrar a chingazos. Like, I was like, I'm ready. I was after she rolled away with my son, after I held his hand, I was like, man, I'm ready to do my time. I don't care about anything else. And that's exactly what happened. After that, I got to Falfurrias. It was hard, after giving birth, you have all this milk and there's no baby, and your body's missing a baby. And this is probably, if you've ever lost a child, if you've ever had a baby and he's passed on you, I can relate to you in this pain, because maybe it's not the same, and you're probably gonna say, well, but you have your son. Well, I don't really have my son. I've never really had my son. But I can relate in the sense that, there's no baby there, and your body wants a baby, but there's nothing to feed it, and it's a really difficult situation. You're used to him moving inside you, and all of a sudden you're all alone, and you go through a lot of things after you come back. And then they threw me in the shoe when I first got back, and I was like, man, I'm not gonna be in the shoe. I need help. Like I need to be around people. You can't just have a baby and then you're gonna be thrown in the shoe. No. And I was like, man, you're gonna throw me back in one of them tanks. I was like, you're gonna throw me back in the tank that I was in. So they ended up taking me back to the tank that I was in, and the ladies there, the Mexican ladies, and just other women were so helpful. Like they were so helpful. They were like, Idalia, this is what you're gonna do now. This is what happens next. And again, I don't know why. I think I should have cried this. I should have grieved this. I never did. The only thing that I was thinking about, yeah, my body was feeling a certain way, but at the same time, I was worried about sentencing, because it had already been so long. And this lady that she used to read cards, because there was a lot of people that were like, they used to worship la muerte and stuff like that. Yo nunca había escuchado de la muerte, nunca, nunca en Houston no se escuchaba hasta que me encerraron en esos años. Había muchísima gente que oraba a la muerte, otra gente que leía cartas y todo eso, y yo nunca, y es una promesa que yo le he hecho a Dios. I was like, man, there's 3 things that I'll never do in this life. And one of them is I'll never go and get my cards read. I respect everybody that does, but I don't fool with that. And there was this lady, and everybody used to come over to the tank to get their cards read. Y yo dormía en un lado de ella, y yo nada más las veía, yo decía, no, man, God, like, in that sense, I feel like and this is just a personal conviction, I feel like, no, like, my faithfulness to God, like, God, oh, I'm not gonna, eso de las cartas, nada de eso, right? Pero esta señora una vez I was sleeping and she told me, right, that she started throwing the cards and, something told her. She started telling me, that I was going to get out in 13 months. And she started telling me before I got sentenced. And other things that nobody could have known, right? But, of course, the devil knows. So, it ain't nothing new. Some of them were lies. Some of them were real. But either way, one of the things that que sí le acertó was that I was going to get out in 13 months. And I did. I ended up getting a 2-year sentence. But I didn't know that at the time. So I just threw her crazy. But that's one of the things that I do remember from that time that I was there. And sure enough, after I had my son, I got sentenced and I got 24 months. And it was crazy because my sentencing, when I first got there, again, I got a court-appointed lawyer, and he didn't do anything for me. He was just like, listen, you're going to get a lot of time, at least 3 years. At least 5 years. You're going to get at least 5 years. That's the minimum you're going to get. Just get ready to just go in there and plead guilty. And so I remember it was my time. They called me up there, right? It was my time. And I was like, they were like, Castillo. And I was the very first one porque te ponen por alfabeto, right? They were like, Castillo. And I was like, why am I the first one to get sentenced? So I go up there and, man, I kid you not. The judge, right? I still remember his name, but I'm not going to say it out of respect. He was just like looking at me, and he was looking at the tabla, right? Because en sentencing in the feds tienen una tabla, es como un tabulador. No me acuerdo cómo se llama en inglés, pero sí sé que es una tabla. Entonces, dependiendo de tus previous charges, like if you've had a few reentries, or if there's just all kinds of cases, right? Like drug cases, just all kinds of cases. And dependiendo de esa tabla es el tiempo que te van a dar. Supuestamente era lo mínimo it was 5 years, like the minimum amount of time was 5 years. But he just kept looking at me, and I think God touched his heart, and he had like such huge compassion over me. He was like, why did you come back? And I was like, honestly, sir, I was like, if you're going to allow me to say a word, I was like, I want to apologize for crossing back. I was like, I wasn't planning on crossing back. I was like, but I was 2 months pregnant, and I was just thinking about having my son on this side. I wasn't trying to come back and do any type of crime. I was like, I really was just trying to have my son. And he's like, so you gave birth? And I was like, 3 weeks ago in the county, I was in the county jail. And he's like, sure enough, so what you came to do, you did. I was like, yes, sir. And he's like, okay. He's like, well, that sounds like a time served. And man, I kid you not. He's like, I know the minimum amount of time I'm supposed to give you is 5 years. He's like, but I'm going to give you a 24-month sentence. And I had a little bit of time left. I think I had about a year left. And I couldn't believe it. And you know what? I had exactly 13 months left to do that 24-month sentence. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, this is God. And I was like, thank you. I was like, I didn't even know what to say. I was just like, thank you so much. And I remember they sit you down, and then like the rest of the people go up there, and after me was a girl. She had my same last name. I'm not gonna say her name out of respect, but man, she went up there and she actually got the whole 5 years. And when she came back to sit down, she was like, man, she's like, ooh, she's like, I can't stand you. She's like, after that, we pulled chain together. And she's like, man, that day, she was like, in that court, she was like, man, me caíste tan mal. I just couldn't believe that we had the exact same case, and I got the 5 years and you just got 2. Man, she's like, why? How? I don't even understand. It was God, man. God, for real. God was with me through my whole stay in prison. For real, for real. It was crazy. But after that, I got transferred to San Antonio. I was in San Antonio for a little while, for like, I think 2 or 3 weeks. And then that's the maximum amount of time that you can be in San Antonio. And you have to pull a chain again to your prison, wherever it is that you're going to get sent to. Thank God I stayed in Texas, because a lot of the times they were taking us to Oklahoma. A lot of the times. I know a lot of people that left to Oklahoma from our county. And thank goodness, man. That's something else where I know it was God, because I was praying like, Lord, please, please, please let me stay in Texas. Because with feds, it's not like stay. You get moved wherever it is that they want you to go. They get you in a plane, they take your ass somewhere else. And I knew that if I stayed in Texas, I was gonna get to see my son. My mom would have probably traveled anywhere else, but I didn't want to put another burden on her. And I knew she was gonna want to go see me. And I actually went 6 months without seeing my son after I gave birth. 6 whole months. When I gave birth and they brought me back to the prison, this is before I got sentenced and everything. My mom, she actually, like, when she picked him up from the hospital, she turned around and she, like, drove to Falfurrias y me llevó al bebito para que lo viera. I couldn't hold him anymore. I didn't get to hold my son and see him until 6 months later. So when she first visited me, when she just picked him up, and all the guards were there and everybody was just like excited to finally meet the baby, because like I said, I'd been there for a while. So after that time, I didn't see my son. I had to wait for sentencing, and then I had to wait to get transferred. And even after getting transferred, you have to get your visits approved, like even after getting to your like prison. So it took a while, and thank God I stayed in Texas. I got transferred to Carswell Medical Unit. I think that's what it's called, in Fort Worth, Texas. And Carswell wasn't bad at all. I remember getting there and I was afraid. Of course, I'm always gonna say that. I think I said it in my first video. You're always gonna be afraid. There's always gonna be this fear, no matter what. Like, you go in there with the mindset like, you stay in your lane, and you. But if if people, get crazy on you, well, this time around, you don't really care, because you're not going to get more time. You already have time. Like, your time is your time. You're not going to get added time unless you try to leave, like escape or something, or you kill somebody. Other than that, you're going to do your regular ass time. So who cares if you get in trouble or not? But at the same time, you're not going in there looking for trouble, but you do feel this type of like fear, like, damn, what's going to happen? Who am I going to run into now? Who am I going to have to get in arguments with now? So you think a lot of things. And I happened to get there, and I ran into a lot of people that I've been in the county with in Laredo, Texas. And they were friends already, so we're just like, hey, we kind of just, vibed again or whatever. But I remember when I first got there, it was so different than TDC. TDC is like super old, and then you get to this prison, and I remember when you finally like get, told where you're gonna be, it was like by buildings, right? And that's where you would be housed. And I remember walking out, and I was like waiting for them to like, you know how it is sometimes, like you have to walk through a certain line or something. And here you were free. I was like, man, there's no guards that are gonna guide us anywhere. They were like, girl, what you mean? You free out here? This is the feds. And I remember like everything was just kind of brand new. I don't know how to explain it, And it was a medical unit. So there was like a hospital, part of like, people with like cancer or people with just other things. And then there was, like the regular units, It was like a prison, but it was more like dorms. There were like real rooms with real beds. They were like bunk beds, but they were real mattresses. So when I got assigned to one of the rooms, you don't get a good mattress when you first get in there, right? You get like this regular ass mattress, but luckily there was this one girl that she'd gotten caught like out of place or something, and she got moved to the SHU, and she left her mattress, her like badass brand new mattress. And the girl was just like, girl, it looks like you got lucky today. That girl just left to the SHU, keep her mattress. And I was like, oh my goodness. So the whole time that I was there, that rest of that year, I slept in a good ass mattress. They have real mattresses with real pillows. I was like, oh my god, they have pillows in here. So I had good roommates. I had good cellies. They were older than me. There wasn't a lot of fight. There wasn't with feds. It was different because there wasn't a lot. It wasn't like TDC. TDC, you had different types of people. And here you had a lot of lifers. You had old school. You had a lot of old school people. I think there was a lot of more older people. So it was like chill. I think it was because it was the same reason, because it was a medical unit. There was a lot of older people, and not everybody was sick, but they were still older. And there were people with money in there, man. There wasn't nobody really just stealing your stuff up in there, because it seems like everybody had money in there. And because people worked. So this is the thing about the feds. They had this type of call center there. I can't remember what it was called, but the people that worked there, which was like the operators, you know when you call zero, like you dial 0 from like ever ago, the people that answer to your calls are inmates. So a lot of the inmates used to work there, and they used to have money, and the feds used to sell good things, like good shoes, like just good things, right? And we used to have jobs. When I first got there, I used to work in the kitchen. Like everybody, when they first get there, they start working in the kitchen. But then this one lady, this Spicer, right? She was alive. No, I think she'd already been incarcerated for 20 years, and I think she still had like another 10 or 20 to go. But she worked at the chaplain's office, and she's like, man, yo quiero meter a alguien aquí que hable español. ¿Qué onda? ¿Te metes tú o qué? Y me metió ahí, and it was like one of them. I was really lucky because not just anybody worked at the chaplain's, and I got to work there when I was there. So it was different because there was just different types of people. There were fights, but not like in state. There was a lot of fighting. Even counties, you have a lot of fights. But here, I expected to get there and be like, damn, what's going to happen now? And it was nothing like that. Yeah, there was a lot of arguing. Because, I want to, and then you have microwaves. You have microwaves in federal prison. So there was fighting because of microwaves or, just stuff like that. But, for the most part, it was a lot better. I remember when I first, walked to Chow, I was like, man, I was thinking it was like this, you always imagine like prison's just ugly, Man, I remember when I walked in there, I straight up, I was like, man, this looks just like Luby's. Like you walked in Golden Corral or something. I was like, what is this? This real restaurant with the salad bar, fountain drinks, and everything. Like the tables were real, like real chairs. There was like carpet in the kitchen area. I was like, what is going on here? And I turned and looked at this girl. She, we just got there together. I was like, this is really federal prison. I was like, they got a salad bar. She's like, right. I was like, and fountain drinks and ice. Girl, what you mean? Man, we didn't have any of that in state. Man, there was the only time that you ever drank like a cold drink in state was when you first got it from the commissary. And here, it's like every meal you had salad and freaking fountain drinks. Yeah, there was a lot of that. I'm not sure why. I don't know. I'm not sure why. But there was like this beauty salon. People used to dye their hair. They used to, do their nails. They used to there was just a lot more going on. They had playrooms. You could take pictures. They had this big church. They had like this Catholic church, and then they had this, Protestant church. It was like a real church. They used to have a real preacher and like real everything. They used to have people come over all the time. Like it was a lot better. Like everything, the rooms had carpets like the church, and it was just altogether better. The rec yard was really big there, and they had big old trees, and taking a walk out in the big old rec yard, like with a lot of trees and squirrels, and it made you feel like you were kind of free. Like, so everybody's just kind of chill. There's still a lot of, like relationships and stuff going on. There's a lot of wives in there. There's a lot of like, partying going on sometimes too, like at night. And I had really good friends in there. I made really good friends in there. Like I said, some of them I lost, contact with, and I hope that they find me. There's this one girl that I've been looking for so long, a few of them, and I hope you get to see my videos one day. One of them's from Dallas. She's from Irving, I think, from Irving, Texas, and she used to have twins. I think it was baby girls, I think, and she used to talk about them all the time. And since I just had my son, he used to come. My mom used to come see me sometimes, so my roomies were like always nice. They were like, "Oh my gosh, did you get to see the baby?" And like it was just different because I turned 20 in Carswell, but I had already turned 18, 19, and 20 in prison. I spent 3 birthdays, 3 holidays, like 3 everything in there. And for my last birthday, which was my 20th in Carswell, I got like this big banner outside our dorm, like, Annie, happy 20th birthday. And I just made really good friends, people that I hold dear to my heart. I'm gonna put some pictures up here. One of the pictures that I'm gonna have to edit out the other girl, because I don't know, if she would ever want me to put her picture up on here on YouTube. But the other girl that I'm showing her, I sent her a message. I was like, hey, can I post this picture? And she was like, yeah, girl. Like, man, I'm so proud of you. I know you came out and you did good things. I ended up getting deported in September of 2007. After that, I just ended up staying, and I just ended up, working. And then, I eventually got married, and I, went back to school, and everything that we've done, right? And things have just gotten so much better. I remember when I got deported, getting out was a lot. Like, getting out of prison, and after that time, doing all that time is hard, in the sense that, there's so much, like, a lot of things had changed. Even, even like, you've been locked up for so long, and so much has been going on. Like, I'll probably just talk about that later, because it is a lot. Like, getting out of prison, I remember, you feel like everything just changes. You feel like everything. I got out, the cell phones had jumped from like little, regular Nokias in 2004 to like flip phones, and like all kinds of texting, and like MP3s, and MySpace. And I was like, what the hell is all of this? Like, I felt like just so much had been going on, and I was just so behind. And then even worse, I was now in Mexico again, and I really didn't know what the hell was going on, and I had to start all over again, and it was just really hard. And I'll do a video on the aftermath of that, because by the time I got out, I had held so much in, and it is hard being in prison. There's always gonna be fights, there's always gonna be stress, there's always gonna be, just bad things, happening. And your self-esteem is so screwed. You have so many trust issues. I had a lot of anger issues, and I apologize if I was ever in prison with you, and I ever did anything that I shouldn't have, and I said things that I shouldn't have, right? I never did it out of like evilness. I was probably just trying to just defend myself, or maybe I was immature, and I maybe I had an attitude that I shouldn't have had, because I was so young. And I do apologize for that. I really do, from the bottom of my heart. And I want to say that, I hope that you come around to really just forgiving me if I was ever, in the wrong. But I had a lot to learn. I had a lot to grow, and I wasn't in the best place. None of us were, and I could have been nicer. I could have, because I remember even the times when I used to lock away myself in the shoe. I used to do it because I would lose my temper real fast, because I was so frustrated. I was so angry. Like, even when the cell doors would shut, my son would jump. Like, he was born with this, like, he was born with like this. He used to jitter sometimes when he would hear like a loud noise, or he was very easily startled with any little noise. Even till this day, he still has that. Like, if all of a sudden, like, you'll hear a pop or something, he'll like they will como que se asusta. And I think it's because of, that time that I was I was holding so much stress and so much frustration and just so many things in there. And he, he felt the weight of it all. So all that, everything that you go through when you get out, it messes you up. It fucks you up in the head. It does. It really does. And I had a lot. I was just walking chaos in my mind and my emotions in every single way. I was just like really hurt, and I was in so much pain. I felt so much rejection. I felt so much shame. I felt so much guilt. I felt so much anger. I felt so much just everything. And it was just a whole new journey getting out, and I'll do a follow-up on this video of that. I've felt all these things, and I want to keep talking about it, and I want to share how it was for me, how I went from that really just screwed up mindset, because with that came a lot of sheltering. Like, now I wanted nobody to get in my heart. Like, after that whole situation with this person that I had in my first prison experience, after that I completely shut out. I with everybody and everything, even with my own feelings. So I turned into this monster. Like, I was so angry at life, and at the same time I was dealing with so much guilt and shame. I was just this I needed help, and it was not easy, getting back into society. There is this, transitioning process that people that have, been incarcerated must go through, to be able to, be successful out here, because you go through a lot of things in so many different ways. So I'll do that, hopefully soon, but I just wanted to share my story. I know that it's really long, but I hope that with everything that I share in all my story times, you're able to relate. And I, pray with all my heart that if you're going through something like this, or that if you recently went through something like this, or that if you know somebody that's gone through this, I pray that God gives you strength, and, that somehow, some way you're able to come up out of this even better. Because prison, if I had to just bring a summary of both of my two stories, prison stories, I would say that prison will either make you better or make you worse. And thank God in my case, it made me better. Thank God in a lot of people's cases that I know that left that place, especially moms, like, they did better. You can definitely do it. It's going to be a lot harder. There's going to be a lot of things that you're going to have to go, work through. You may have to go, to therapy. I wish I would have had that option, but because I think we can all agree that therapy is so expensive. And at the time, I just didn't have the money for it. Even now, like, now I have the money for it and I don't have the time, but it's hard getting to therapy. But we really need to do it. And if you've been to prison, if you've had your baby in prison, if you've been incarcerated, if you've been deported, like, if you've been through any of these things, and even other just traumatic experiences, try to get help, try to see a therapist, read books. That's why I'll be sharing a lot of that. I read a lot, I write a lot, and I've just tried to dig my way out of there with God's help, and just with every other help that I've been able to get, so you can be able to be successful out here. So you can start a whole new life, and so you can get through that dark chapter of your life, because it's definitely possible to do so. It really is. And I really hope and I pray with all my heart that you're able to do that. And if there's anything that I can somehow, some way help you with, is sharing my story and letting you know that it's definitely possible to get up and to keep going. And maybe it's not going to be like quick. It's taken me 15 years to get where I'm at now. It's taken me 15 years to be able to talk about this and, have healed. A lot of things still hurt. Yes, they're all probably always going to hurt, because it's something that involves, somebody so dear to me, my son, and this whole situation should have not happened this way. But things happen, and, we can, make better things out of them. So I'm hoping that, I don't get as much judgment either, but if it happens, what is what it is. And I just want to say thank you for everybody watching my videos. I want to wish everybody a great week, and you guys, stay blessed.